G'day, I'm Tayden, I'm from Gooverse Games, and for the small minority who missed my bombshell of a trailer drop a few days ago, my game Goo Gunners is coming out on Steam on the 26th of September. Go and wishlist it, please. So, I get to ask the question and hopefully answer it. How hard is making a game actually? As it turns out, it's quite difficult. It's actually very difficult. My personal goal is to make some kind of positive impact on the games industry and specifically for Unreal Engine. But when you're just getting into it, you kind of have to be realistic. You know, I've never made a game before, like I've never actually pursued this kind of thing, but you know, I wanted to make something that was worthwhile at least. I didn't want to make a buggy mess, so I had to set myself out a feasible and realistic game that I could, you know, actually polish and make it into something that is fun and performs well and actually, you know, something that people would want to play. For Goo Gunners, in terms of performance, I mean, I think I did alright. In terms of gameplay, obviously you'll have to judge for yourself. The vision for me was literally just to make a game for the sole purpose of learning how to make a game. And I feel like that's most indie games developers' first journey into making games as well. I might have made a mistake in not making like a couple of small games first. You hear that a lot. I didn't do that. Maybe that was silly of me. It took me about 2 years to develop Goo Gunners, but I don't know. It felt like I was ready to do something slightly bigger than that. It's not like the scope was ridiculous or anything like that, but you know, I kept it within the range, but I think I did achieve something relatively decent. Hakita, the guy who made Ultra Kill, made a really good video on this that I watched a little while ago. He kind of talks a little bit about scope and just kind of like the things that he overcome as well. So I'll leave a link to his video down in the description as well. So how hard it is to make a game is obviously, you know, kind of depends on the scope of your game. But obviously for this, I'll focus on Goo Gunners because I don't want this video to be a nothing burger and I don't want to end the video on a cliffhanger of, well, that depends on how you define it. So let's get into it. So really, when you think about it, the question isn't how hard is making a game actually, it's how hard is making a game for the first time. And I feel like that's what most people who search up videos like this are actually looking for. It's like, you know, who would be asking that question besides first-time developers? You get what I mean? Maybe someone's doing market research or something stupid, but that's kind of what I'm going to aim at to answer today. How hard is it to get into game development? Like, to fully finish your first game, ready to release, what's the workload? I kind of did already answer it. It's really hard. There's a lot, and you hear that a lot too, but it is genuinely difficult. And there's a lot that you don't think about as well, aside from just the workload. You know what I mean? That like there's a work ethic element to it as well, and just generally your mentality is affected by this kind of stuff too. I don't want to scare off any aspiring indie devs, but there should be a little bit of fear involved. You know, it's a dedication. Like, you should be wanting to complete something that is of a decent quality buy. You don't want to release a buggy mess. Like, do you ever go on Steam and you just sift through like the free games and stuff? Some of them are really good, like, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you just get one in there and it's like, it launches. It sure does launch. So yeah, you gotta focus on making something that's worthwhile creating. And so having that little bit of, oh, I want to make something that is worth other people playing, that should be a driving factor for you. Here's the thing, I've watched a fair few indie devs on YouTube. Like, I used to watch a lot of tutorials before. I was like, oh wait, I actually have to do something instead of just watching tutorial. But I don't know if they're just better than me or if they like don't mention it out of fear for, like, you know, make it seem like they're unprofessional or whatever. But so Goo Gunners took 2 years to develop, but it was more like 4 because I spent 2 years procrastinating. This is a real thing, and a lot of you are going to empathize with this because getting into game development is no joke. It's one of the biggest you don't know what you don't know industries. When you get in there, you're so blind. You just got no clue. Like, you can watch tutorials and stuff, you can get a vague idea, but there's so much practical knowledge that needs to be learned by doing that just jumping in there with nothing else is just, it's daunting. So my personal journey was jumping in there, messing around with like just blocks and putting things in there, no idea what a blueprint was, just messing around. And then I would just quit for like a month or 2 months, you know what I mean? Goo Gunners itself as a concept didn't actually come into fruition until probably my third-ish prototype. So yeah, it took a lot longer than the 2 years of actual work development, like 1.5 to 2 years, you get what I mean? Because it was just so much learning to do before that. So just be aware of it. If you're in that phase right now where you're just thinking about it, that's part of it too. But you wanna have that a little bit of annoyance in you where it's like, oh, am I gonna make a game or not. You know, you got to get yourself behind it a little bit. But yeah, just be realistic with yourself. Like there's always going to be that phase. But to a lot of people, it might sound insane that you are, you know, spending 2 years procrastinating. And look, you can get into like different people's personalities and stuff, but at the end of the day, some people are, you know, instant starters and are just super motivated, but those are the type of people who also have 4 other projects on the go and never finish anything. You know what I mean? You're probably one of those people too. But for some people who want to do things right, and this is more leaning into the perfectionists, and we've got our own problems. I'm a bit of a perfectionist myself, which is probably why it took so long to get things out and why making a video like this for me is such a daunting task. Because, you know, you always think, what if I release the wrong thing first and people get the wrong impression or whatever, but you kind of just have to remind yourself to start, and you can deal with all that stuff later, right? But when you're starting, it feels like failure. It feels the same thing as failure when you've done nothing, because you're starting from zero, right? And that's why it's so important to keep in mind, like, yeah, you're starting from nothing, but everyone starts from nothing. Don't treat it as failure. And it sounds stereotypical, but you literally have to treat that feeling as, okay, then I'm on the right track. Like, oh, I feel like I've done nothing at the moment and I know nothing and I will go nowhere. I'm on the right track. Like, that's the right mentality to have. Nobody, like, doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter what your friend group is like, how many people are inspiring you to do it, how driven you are. Those first couple of steps are always going to be so unbelievably difficult, because you just feel like you've done nothing and you won't see the end result until it's done. And that's one of the hardest things as well. So consistency is a funny one, because it's one of those things that you can watch all about, and you can listen to podcasts, and you can even understand it, like the idea behind it, but you'll never experience or truly understand how important being consistent is until you have released something or completed something after you were really hard on yourself to be consistent. Otherwise, it just doesn't pay off. And so there's always that little thought in your head of, oh, I can, you know, take breaks or whatever, and you will take breaks, but consistency is the number one thing that will determine if you're going to be successful or not. And, you know, your definition of success might vary, but, you know, more realistically, it's grit. Grit is the measurement of your ability to push through difficulty despite the difficulty, right? Like, you keep taking on challenges and keep moving through no matter what. It's your kind of like indefatigability to move through. In game dev, you are going to be smashed with every mentality problem under the sun. You're going to suffer from burnout. You're going to have bugs that take days or weeks to solve. Like, I've had a fair few of those. The worst type of bug is when it takes a week because you missed a checkbox. So I solved a week worth of physics issues because one of my collider settings was wrong. And I thought it was in my blueprint in the way that it was like activating and deactivating physics. Man, you're gonna grow tolerant, at least that. But even on the level of like faith, you know, there's gonna be so much self-doubt. It doesn't even matter the scale of your project. Like, you could be making, you know, like an Osu-like game where colors appear on the screen. You go, that first like day or two of figuring out how to make colors appear on the screen is gonna be like, I suck. Like, this is the worst thing I've ever made in my life. Like, you're gonna have to get over that at some point. Like, faith in yourself, it can be hard to come by, especially when you're working really hard on a problem and you don't even know if you're gonna be able to solve it, but you just gotta push through it, and that's what grit's all about. Another big thing is just have a goal. Like, understand what you're working towards. If you're just floating through and you're like, I kind of want to make a game and I'm just seeing where we go with it, like, of course you're gonna be unmotivated because you don't even know what you're trying to make yet. Like, you know what you want to make a game, but like, what are you gonna do with it? Like, are you pursuing a career? You know, are you doing it, you know, for educational purposes? Are you putting it on a resume? Are you just trying to make it like the best possible experience in whatever you're making? Like, all those things are valid, but at least understand what it is, because when it comes to those times where you're gonna sit there on the couch and you'd rather watch, you know, the second and third season of Breaking Bad back to back, then yeah, you're gonna need a little bit of extra motivation. You know what I mean? Wake up, like, get moving and understand what your goal's about. There's also a big thing that I don't really see talked about too much. I think we bag on the AAA industry a lot, and like, rightfully, they've done some things recently. But the indie industry right now is kind of in this weird spot. We're in a bit of a gold rush. It's a little bit of a bubble. If you kind of step back and look at it for a little bit, every indie game developer wants to get rich. And it might seem like obvious to state that, right? But really think about that for a moment, because is that what game development is even supposed to be? You know what I mean? Like, sure, it's a business, right? You want to make money from your game at some point. Like Goo Gunners is releasing for $4.50 Australian dollars when it drops, but it'll be free for 24 hours. But so many games these days are pushing for a trend, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, some trends are worth chasing. Like, I love the multiplayer archetype that we've got right now, dude. Like, we missed so many split screen games over the last decade. Man, there are so many good ones that come in. Like, Split Fiction is gas. Like, what are you talking about? That's sick. Lethal Company was awesome. I didn't really like Lethal Company that much personally because the difficulty spike was too hard for me and I suck. But, Peak was awesome. Loved Peak. Same kind of genre, right? The point of it is, though, you can chase a trend or you can create something from heart. If the thing that you want to create from heart falls within a trend, awesome. Take advantage of it, but you want to create something that's true to you. Like, you want to have a good vision and you want to follow that vision properly. Otherwise, it's just going to come out something that feels a little bit corporate. And that's kind of what is happening with the AAA industry right now, because, they can rely on their IP to sell the game. And so there's not much risk taking, and that's why we've seen so many big AAA games just absolutely swamp. Like, it sucks these days. Even Borderlands 4, which I've been playing a bunch and is fun, it's like, it doesn't feel that creative, you know what I mean? There was obviously thought put into it. Don't get me wrong, massive teams, like big people whose whole job is designed to be creative, right? But it still comes out of this product, it's like, okay, like, it's a bit nostalgia-ish, the humor is a bit hit and miss, and it performs like absolute dog shit. What on earth happened with that, by the way? Oh my god. Forced Nanite and Lumen and Unreal Engine 5's open world partitioning system with like 3 zoning areas. Whoa, that's brutal. Like, how did you even get that to run at all, to be completely honest? Anyway, I digress. What I'm saying is, believe in your vision. Like, have an idea of what you want to create and create something true to you. For Goo Gunners, I really wasn't following any archetype at all. I mean, how many on-rails, asteroid shooting, arcade style, point shoot 'em up, roguelite, upgrade card games are there? Not many. But it's because I wasn't pushing to move into that genre. It just kind of happened because I followed it. And, to be honest, it took me a few iterations to get to that point because I just kind of followed the fun and I did a bit of play testing. And, I kind of found what worked for Goo Gunners through great difficulty. It was a long journey. Fun fact, by the way, Goo Gunners started off as, way back, it started off as an RPG game that I wanted to create. Slightly open world, like low scope, but abilities and, all this kind of stuff. And I way over scope. First game, you want to make an RPG, wake up, homie. Like, come on. But after that, I was like, okay, I've obviously got a down scope. Let's create something realistic. And I was in that mindset of, I want to create something small. So I turned it into an item collection game, where you like spawn in a house and like you just had to pick everything up and you could change the size of your character and stuff. And it was like a collectathon. It was like timed. That's when I discovered I hated 3D modeling. I hate 3D modeling, man. I don't want to ever do 3D modeling again, even though I will. I know I will. I'm going to do a lot of 3D modeling, but... So that's why I got turned into an asteroid game, because I was sick of making household items. I was making variants of cans and forks and plates. I was like, all right, I'm going to wave that idea goodbye for a little bit. But the alien design, the goober, the old lad, that guy, he came from that, so blessed be. And then, yeah, I just kind of downscoped from there and it turned out to what it is, and I polished. The point I'm making is, let your vision drive you, right? You're gonna have those times where you spend 2 weeks in the couch and you don't do any game development. You might hit a big milestone in game. You might fix that ridiculous bug, right? And then you'll take some time off. And after you take more than a day off, the impulse to go back just evaporates. It's just like, oh, I can leave for a little bit. I'll come. I'm on a break right now. Like, you have to be a little bit angry at yourself. You have to be like, come on, dude. Like, are you gonna make this game or not? You've got to have that chat with yourself. Otherwise, you're going to sit there and do nothing for way too long. I'm very honest. Like, I have had well over a month off on Goo Gunners before, during its development cycle, like peak development, after I like solved a bunch of stuff. Work got crazy. I work full time. I'm spending 1 hour a day creating this game, by the way. And so sometimes you get really tired, and that's all right. Give yourself a break, that's okay, but come back to it. You know, you want to have that vision and that drive to do that. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, who do you want to be? It's not about doing it every day. It's about having the grit to fall off the horse, fall asleep, wake up 2 weeks later in a coma, get out of bed, and get on that bloody horse again. It has to be done. Right, I've talked enough about motivation. You know, that's the stereotype stuff that every other game developer bloody goes about for ages. I love talking about it. It's a really valuable thing, but there's only so much I can tell you before you have to understand it by doing it. You know what I mean? So I'll leave it there for that one. But let's talk about more of the actual practical side of things, like coding and like learning the engine and the practical stuff in there, blueprints, Unreal Engine, yada, yada, yada. So for Goo Gunners, I'm using Unreal Engine 5.4. I started on 5.2, I think, and then halfway through the project, I upgraded. It wasn't really hard for me to transition the project between 5.2 and 5.4. There was like one blueprint that didn't work because I changed the way a certain node worked, and then it was fine, right? I am a blueprints developer. That means I program with these chunks of like visual scripting nodes. They are awesome. However, if you are moving into Unreal Engine because you think the bar is low and it's really easy to do that, boy, you're in for a surprise. Unreal Engine's blueprint system is great. It's really good. Most proper C++ developers who work, you know, in traditional programming, they'll tell you that they don't really like it. I disagree with you. Like, look, bless your typing heart. Like, you're obviously very, very good at what you do. However, the majority of reasons why people don't like blueprints is because it performs poorly and it's not as controllable. Both of those things are wrong. Sorry, it's a skill issue. So, look, any developers watching this right now, hopefully I didn't annoy too many of you because I know you guys are just gonna freak out. But you and I both know that the performance of a program and its modularity and the way that it functions has nothing to do with the programming language. It's on you. Go figure it out. Blueprints is wicked. It's wicked. It has some mild shortcomings. You can look at the frame time graphs and you can go measure your microseconds, and yeah, there's going to be some differences there. You know, it hasn't got a very good like looping culling system, so you know, like infinite loops will sneak through and stuff like that. But just be smart. Like, if an infinite loop is sneaking through in your project, you've done something wrong. Like, grow up. Like, figure it out. But yeah, biggest thing for new developers is if you're going into Unreal Engine 5 with the hopes that it's going to be easier because it's visual scripting, it's not the case. But the bar of entry is lower. There's less that you have to learn initially, so you can get into creating straight away. That's a really interesting thing for the public perception of Unreal Engine, because the bar of entry is so low. We're getting a lot of Unreal Engine 5 games that are dog water, dude, like dog water. And it's because it's easy enough to make something function. Functionality is not proof of something's eligibility to exist, right? Work for something. Like, you have to create. Performance is an art style, and so is game design. Like, everything is really important there. You can't just slap a walking simulator on a horror game and then be like, each hour it's $2.50, enjoy. Can't do that. Well, you can, but you know, it's going to be mid. If it's a practice project, dude, I'm not holding it against you. But you know, like, there's more to be done. It's funny to think about, isn't it? Because it's not just in the indie scene. It's all the way up through the AAA scene as well. Contractors are a massive deal in the AAA industry at the moment. And most of them are, you know, junior and mid-level developers for Unreal Engine 5 using the blueprint system. A lot of them don't know a lick of C+, and neither do I. All right, I've done like very small segments to fix some very specific issues and, you know, fix one big performance thing, but that's it. And I had to use Google Gemini inside out and backwards. Like, there was no way that I could do that by myself, right? But yeah, it's interesting. The bar of, if I'm hitting this and it's making noise, you stay there, cord. Sorry if you've been hearing bumps and it's because of that cord. But yeah, because the bar of entry is so low, a lot of these contractors are doing shoddy work. They're creating, you know, they get paid on making something that functions. And that's the problem, because they're not invested in it, and they're not, you know, it's not skillful in that kind of way. And that's a huge issue. term that I love is optimization is an art style. I mentioned it before, but it is, like, it's hard. It's not just about optimizing your code. Like, there are some fundamental game design decisions that you have to make in order to create a game that is what, you know, performs well. You can't just rely on the engine and culling and instancing and, you know, simplifying your materials and stuff. Like, that's part of it for sure, but, you know, maybe you have to have a loading screen in there, dude. Like, is it worth having an open world? You know, do you really need the dynamic lighting right now, or can we bake it and use color grading? All right, like, there are so many options. You know, do we need this dynamic grass? Does it need to be physics based, or can we use some weird vertex trick? There's a million different things. And you see it in good AAA games as well. Like, I will praise Battlefield 6. Don't pre-order it. You know better than to do that. But it's looking pretty good. Like, let's be honest, boys. If I'm not pre-ordering it, I'm buying it on day one. I played that beta. It was gas. What I'm saying is the game performs like butter. First of all, because they've got their own custom engine implementation with Frostbite, and it's got a really good track history, all right? And they're not using ray tracing, so there's no weird, like, shadow map texture buffers that need to include bounce lighting and, you know, texture information per pixel. It's stupid, all right? There's a lot of performance to be gained there, and this is where it comes into it, because obviously the leadership at DICE have gone, hey, we need to make something that's going to make money. We're out of ideas. And so they've got good leadership in. I can't remember his name. I'll put him up on screen. But the fellow who's in charge now has got a great track history. And obviously with the right leadership, things get created. And here we are with a pretty hopeful game. And I'm looking forward to it, right? But because the node system in Unreal Engine 5 is a programming language, and you do need to know how to program. Like, you have to have an idea behind programming, or you have to be learning it by learning Unreal Engine. That is a big learning curve for a lot of people, and it was a huge learning curve for me. It took me like a full year to understand how casting works, which is like how you get variables and information from other blueprints. And I still don't fully understand it. Like, the documentation is there, but it needs to be worded like a baby. It needs to be for babies, and I've got baby brain. And so it took me ages to figure it out. And I still am trying to figure out soft references, man. Like, there's a whole, you tell me every time I want to get a variable, I gotta put all these things, put them together every single time. Like, can I just cache it? Whatever. Anyway, you get what I mean. So, controversially, and I say this with many kilograms of salt, use AI to help you learn, man. Don't use AI to write your code for you. Use it as a tool to help you learn. So much of Goo Gunners was with me on Gemini, Google's AI, which is free. Just asking it questions to help me understand. Like, the biggest thing with AI right now is it taking over the job of creative people. I don't think that'll happen because AI has a really hard time being creative. And you put a tool like AI in an artist's hands, in a creative person's hands, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this whole new avenue opens up. I've got a big disclaimer on Goo Gunners. I've used AI art. My art cards are generated through Midjourney, and they're hand edited after that, but everything else is human generated, right? I just didn't have enough money to hire an artist. Please forgive me. I'll run a community competition if Goo Gunners gets big enough. We'll replace them all. Anyway, no promises. I've got to figure that out still. But what I'm saying is, use every tool at your disposal. Like, there's so much out there. Sure, you can watch tutorials, and if you're using Unity or whatever, Brackeys is fantastic, but no better way to learn than by doing. And that is why I find AI so genuinely useful, because its responses to my questions are catered exactly to what I need, what I want. I say, hey, I've got this thing and it needs to look at this other thing and it needs to be interpolated like this, and the other thing will move through it sometimes, so it needs to turn around, and it's like, oh, have you heard of gimbal lock? What is that? So I have to learn out what it is and how to solve it, and that's what I did, and it worked really well. So an actual just summary and dot points of a new developer and what I would focus on learning first if you don't discover them yourself almost immediately Number one is just blueprints. What the hell is a blueprint? Why are there so many of them? How do they function? And understanding that they're all written in C++ and they're their own classes and their own functions and all the rest of it. And they go down in a hierarchy and they adopt logic from the one above it, yada, yada, yada. The next thing is casting. Learning how to use casting properly is so useful, dude. So useful. Just knowing how to fetch variables and send logic to other things and update things and other blueprints from another blueprint is just like, it feels like that is the foundation of most games. You know what I mean? So probably learn that. Learning what the most useful variables are and like what they're used for. You would probably learn this as you use AI and whatever, or however you're going to learn. It takes some time to learn what they are, but there's more than just float and integer and boolean. Like there's so many weird ones, and variables can be stored as a type of class. So like the reference to my player blueprint is its own variable type, but it might be an object type, whatever. Anyway, you'll learn it eventually. And lastly, using more universal things like the save game logic and how to use your player controller to do inputs for other things, and the level blueprint, how to use the level blueprint properly so it's not broken. I've done that wrong a few times. And there are obviously heaps of other things as well, like the UI is a particularly hard one. I think Googunner's UI is garbage. Like it is probably, I try my best, but UI is complicated. I didn't really watch too many tutorials. I just kind of figured it out myself. I think it performs really poorly, but on a desktop 3070 at 2560 by 1080 on ultra wide, it runs at like 300 FPS. So at least I've got some headroom. And the rest of the logic can just be thought of little logic chunks that need to be their own lesson, right? I make a great habit in Googunners and in the source code to comment everything. It doesn't just help me if I decide to use it or modify it later, but it really helps me learn as well. Like as soon as I'm done with something, I'm like, okay, whoop, here's what it does, blah, 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 blah. This is for the gimbal lock thing that I mentioned before. It works like this variable's for here, blah, 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 blah. Like explain it to yourself, like future you will have no idea what it does, because you won't. You will come back to it 3 months later and go, what? Huh? And so having a couple of notes there are gonna help a lot. The rest is up to you. No more videos, go make something. I thought I wanted to do 3D modeling when I was a teenager. Dude, I don't want to do 3D modeling anymore. This was the hardest part for me, honestly. 3D modeling, there's a lot of it in game development. Like you can buy asset packs and stuff, but that it's different for everybody because some games can get away with using assets. Mine, I wanted, like everything you see here I made. And so there's weird like panels and stuff and that, I don't know if you can see that, but like there's like a center console thing, all the barrels, even the skybox. I modeled the skybox because I didn't want to use Unreal Engine's stupid sky and atmosphere system. Fucking sucks. That sucks. It performs terribly. It was like, do you want to get rid of 3.5 milliseconds? Bye. I'll use a dome, thanks. But yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but it started off as an item collection game and I just got sick of making cups. So I turned it into something a little more viable. I dedicated the hard work to go, okay, I don't want to do much more modeling. I'm going to go model all of the alien assets. And funnily enough, these alien assets, half of them were designed for a secret level in the first game. But they turned out to be really, really useful. So here we are with a fully completed level. And there's only one level in the game, and it's just the hub level in a spaceship, right? So yes, you do need to know how to 3D model, and you need to know how to UV unwrap and all the fun stuff. There's rigging involved and skinning, which are apparently two different things. Yeah, you're gonna have a fun time with it. Honestly, it's gonna take you probably 6 months to learn all that stuff, which I know doesn't sound like very long, but it feels like a long time. Just dedicate 1 month to each. Right, or choose a project for each to finish and learn it as you go. It'll take some time, just be patient with it. And for Googunners, I worked with what I was terrible at. I personally suck at animation. I just don't have the eye for it, not right now anyway. I want to practice it in the future, but there is no animation in that bad boy there. Everything is procedural. The gun turrets will like look at the asteroids, like, they'll get the depth of it and they'll always look at the nearest asteroid and whatever. The character is he's all physics based, and you know, his eye isn't even animated. I've got code in his eye that picks a random position every random n seconds, and then just moves it. So you won't be able to see it, but his eye moves in like this procedural way, and it's just the most cheap possible thing, right? But it's a point that I wanted to make, because work to your strengths, but also work to your weaknesses. There are so many different ways to complete games in the way that you see fit, and yeah, not everyone's going to know everything. There is a lot to learn. Like, give yourself some credit. If you're getting into game development and you already know like even one of those things, it's like, dude, you're in the way. Like, that's a hard thing to learn. It takes ages. I've been 3D modeling, by the way, for probably 10 years. I started when I was 15. I'm 25 now, 24. And holy moly, like, I didn't get much better. You know, so, and I'm not saying that like I've got 10 years of experience, by the way. I've probably realistically only got like 2, max 3 years of actual 3D modeling experience, and it only got serious when I started to make Google. So, but work to what you're bad at. Look, practice does make perfect for sure, but so does smart, intentional game design. Right, so this is something I don't see very often on game development videos about indie developers and stuff. Steam publishing, like getting it ready for Steam, is heaps harder than I first expected it to be. Oh my god. It's like I don't know if I just watched the wrong videos, but I don't see this very often. Steam's publishing it's a great system. It works. Like, it's very functional, and they know, you know, obviously it works because there's thousands and thousands of games, but it is confusing, which is not remedied by the fact that the Steam pipe documentation video to show you how to upload a game to Steam is 9 years old. That guy's running on Windows 7 and his microphone has a crackle and hiss. It's impressive. So yeah, you're gonna have a good time. Choose a different video. Pro tip, there is a GUI in the Steam SDK, Steam Pipe SDK in the folder that you'll download when you get to that. It's just in a zip, you extract it, open the little executable up. Whoa, made it so much easier. They don't even mention that in the video. Why? Beats me, but it made my life a hell of a lot easier, that's for sure. I should check if this thing's still recording.
Oh no, 40 minutes of 4K video. It's not looking good, man.
So after you've done the initial couple of steps, which is you got to buy a Steam app token, which is like 100 USD, so it cost me $150 because I'm upside down. It's expensive, but like, it's worth it. Like, whatever, dude, you're publishing a game, go figure it out. You know, if you're really young and you don't have an income, like, that definitely does make it harder. You know, you're gonna have to hustle your parents for that one, but you know, it's there for a reason. It's because it's kind of security for Steam, right? You gotta pay for storage and you can upload a bunch of stuff, it's fine. After that's all done though, they give you a checklist, and there's a lot on there. It's basically to get your Steam game ready for the store page to be present and like visible to everybody. Make sure that your game is like described properly. There's like content surveys and stuff that you got to get through. The biggest one and the most annoying one, like, there are like 15 different images that you have to create for Steam's presence. Like the library capsules in like all sorts of different ratios vertically, and there's like headers and stuff and a million things. You could probably pump it out in an afternoon or two. It took me about 2 afternoons. But it's just like one of those jobs that are tedious. You know, you're like, hey, do yourself a favor, make yourself a marketing library of just a couple of assets that you can slap together with a good background, a couple of backgrounds. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to exist. You can update it later. For Goo Gunners, like, you'll see, it's real simple. It's very, very straightforward. After all that's done, you're pretty much all there. So you've got to submit both your store page and a build of your game to be tested by Steam. And it takes like 3 to 5 days. And then after that's come back with a thumbs up or a thumbs down and you fix what needs to be fixed, you can put your game into coming soon. The biggest thing for me, and I don't know if this is just me not reading things properly, but I set my release date before I did all that, as it was supposed to be like a week or 2 ago. But you can only release your game 2 weeks after it's been approved and reviewed, which is kind of an annoying thing, because I had to push my game back, and I didn't know about. I'm a first-time developer, so obviously there's going to be some mistakes along the way, but maybe I did it wrong. Maybe I could have kept that date, but from the documentation that I read, it was just like, had to move it. Unlucky. But that's where I'm at right now. That's literally where my game sits for Goo Gunners. I'm just waiting for the release. Once that button drops, It's going to be coming for free for 24 hours. So make sure you wishlist it, go and claim it. It's a free game, dude. There's no microtransactions or anything. I don't even have an online scoreboard yet, it's in the works. Hopefully, I want to get that done at some point. That's a big task, believe me. And so yeah, here we are. I'm just waiting for this thing to be released. Look at that shot. Nice. So that's it. That's where I am right now. It kind of goes without saying that that is a skeleton story. Like you can go into the micro stuff of such individual things and go through the whole like setup about Unreal Engine and like starting a project, blah, 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 blah. There's enough educational material out there, and I don't want to be an educational YouTuber. I'm not really anyway. Like I do want to do some education, but there's enough educational material out there, dude. Like there's plenty of stuff. The fact that I could develop a game from start to finish without any prior knowledge at all and just doing self-research proves that there is enough material out there to actually get things done. So just go find that stuff. I don't want to be that guy. There's enough of it out there. What I do want to help with is just kind of the perspective and expectations and a little bit of the mentality stuff that comes into game development. There's a big stigma around it. Like it's hard. It is hard, right? But there's also like a lot of the, and I'm not, pointing fingers at anyone or anything like that. I don't really have anybody in my head when I say this, but there definitely is an indie scene vibe right now about the hustler indie developer. Like, today guys, I'm gonna make, it's like, I don't wanna be that guy. Like, games should be fun and they should be made with passion and you should be making what you wanna make. It shouldn't be for a project. If you create something that has value, then the money will come. So I don't really have to work for that. If Gooverse ends up being the best game that's ever existed objectively, then yeah, it's gonna make money, but I'm not expecting to make money from Gooverse. It's $4.50 after it's free for 24 hours, right? Like, I'm not gonna make $1 million, but hey, it might pay for itself. So my answer to the question, how hard is making a game actually, is as follows. It's impossible for the unmotivated. It's quite difficult for the passionate, and it is way easier than it was 20 years ago. So much easier, dude. You should watch one of those documentaries about the development of Crash Bandicoot for the PlayStation 1. Oh my god, dude. I've watched it. I don't know if it was the same one. I think it was something else, but there was one where the guy was writing down in like pen and paper and punching holes in like punch cards and stuff, both ones and zeros, and assembly. It was like, yeah, you just don't even know how to approach that. So we're lucky. We've got such an incredible set of game engine development tools. Like Unreal Engine is only one of them, by all means. I'm focusing on Unreal Engine because it's what I know, and it's adopted right now pretty widely by the AAA games industry, and I want to make an impact on that. But we're lucky. Like count your lucky stars, because you can make something in maybe a week if you put your mind to it. Like seriously, you can make something. It better be simple, but scope is what it's all about. On that note, my goal is to make a genuine impact on the games industry. There's enough talk now, I think. We've seen all the videos of people complaining about Unreal Engine and development and leadership problems and that kind of thing. And I never really see anybody talk about, okay, but what can I do? And that's a big thing that I want to focus on. I've got 5 years of leadership experience under my belt, and I love the games industry, as I've known that I've wanted to be a game developer and work in this scene since I was 1, right? Since I first had that big fat Duke Xbox control placed into the palms of my baby little hands, and I played through the first level of Halo Combat Evolved blindly walking into walls, right? That's, I knew from then. And I think the games industry does need a little bit of help at the moment. If you would like to support me in that, and there's absolutely no pressure at all right now, because this channel is going to be pushing 100 views, right? But I do have a Patreon. Have a read on that. That's actually got a little more of a write-up about what my goals are in the industry. They're practical and written and actual tangible things that you can see and follow along with. So if you're insane or you just like what we do, links down in the description. You can have a sniff through there, at least have a read and see what I'm trying to do, and you can get an idea. It also just frustrates me when I watch someone's video and I'm like, wow, that was motivating. Like, I love that. Like, this is a good project. I want to support that. And they've just got no way to do that. So I figured I don't want to be that guy. I want to be able to help myself, and there's no harm in, accepting a bit of help there and there. So if you're one of those people, love ya. Or just go buy Gooverse when it drops. $4.50. Come on. On top of that too, if you want to help me grow, if you're a creator of any size, I don't care if you've got 1 subscriber or 1 billion, hit me up. My email is gooverse.games@gmail.com. That's gooverse.games@gmail.com. Anybody can email me. I'll respond to pretty much everybody over the next couple of months because the channel's really small and I can do that. Same thing with comments. If you have questions, things that you'd like me to cover, or you'd like to have me on a show, talk about game development, I don't care who you are, I'm happy to get out there with basically anybody. Game development deserves the love and attention it needs right now, and so I wanna help as many people as I can. Righto, that's enough rambling for me. Thanks for sticking along and watching through the whole video. If you did, it's going to be a hard time looking at that viewer retention graph at the end of this one, I can promise you. This has been going for an hour for me. I'm recording. I don't know how long this video is going to be at end after I cut it, but I hope you enjoyed. Any questions, like I mentioned, leave down below. But that is all for me, kids. Thank you so much for helping.